Hey everyone, Ripley with Bob's Watches. I'm here with Emily in the studio for another episode of Watch Talk. Today we're talking about the best watches under $10,000 from any brand. So here's a few of our favorites.
Be sure to stick around to see our top watches under $10,000. We are excited to announce a new luxury watch financing partner with Klarna. Each of the watches listed in this video are now available to be purchased with Klarna financing right at checkout. Visit the luxury watches page to see more watches available for Rolex financing.
Yep, and if you haven't done so already, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. Now, before we dive into our top watches, Ripley, what do you have on your wrist today?
I'm wearing my sub, 16610, had it forever, and it shows. It is easily the most beat up watch I own, and
still looks great. What are you talking about?
I think it's one of those watches where it's just like, you know, a nice pair of Vans or Converse. It just
good
looks.
Day one.
It wears
good day 1000.
Yeah, exactly. It almost looks better the more you wear it. Although a nice, fresh, unpolished, marred case is also nice. But it's mine, and now I don't worry about when it gets another one. What about you?
Absolutely. Well, I have a Patek Philippe, a golden ellipse.
Beautiful.
Pretty fancy, but I've missed you guys, so I wanted to kind of bring out my finest today. And gold always on my book.
Always gold, always gold.
I know. So talking about our top watches under 10K, I see we've got a two-tone Datejust. Tell us why this is one of our top picks.
Yeah, so I feel like if you're going to be talking about best luxury watches, you know, I feel like we're probably going to cover a lot of quote-unquote icons today.
Absolutely.
But they're icons for a reason. They're fantastic watches. They are endured throughout the years. It's not a trendy design, kind of timeless, if you will. And when you think about Rolex, sure, you think of their sport watches, but probably the quintessential Rolex is the two-tone Datejust.
Very much so.
So here we have a 116233, so it's the previous generation, 3135 movement, 36 mil, but it's the more modern iteration, so it's got the larger case, thicker lugs, high polished lugs, got a more modern dial with luminous filled sticks, and of course the solid link bracelet. Jubilee fluted, so it's really quintessential Datejust style here. This is just pre-owned. It's discontinued, obviously, but pre-owned it falls just under 10K. And if you got about 10 grand to spend and want a instantly recognizable luxury watch that's timeless, classic, widely respected, and just above reproach, I mean, I feel like this is an easy place to start.
I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, classic in all ways, but also kind of rounds out a collection that maybe has already been started, let alone really initiates that first collector's watch as well, right?
Yeah, I think the two-tone Datejust is sort of one of those watches where it could easily be the one watch you own, but could also be one of those things where you're sort of checking that box of it is an icon. You might have 50 watches, but if you've got that many, you kind of feel like you should have a two-tone Datejust in there. And 36 mil is a wonderful size. So
perfect middle of the ground.
Yeah, you could wear it, I could wear it. It's kind of one of those magic sizes that you can have really, really big guys wear it, tiny wrists wear it, and it all kind of looks good.
Yeah.
And a fun fact about this, the first of the 6-digit series, the case proportions are such that it wears just a wee bit bigger than the current production one. So if you like 36 sizing, but the new one just seems a bit too delicate, this offers a slightly more blocky aesthetic. So personally, I love it. And for 10 grand from the Rolex family, not a sports watch, I think this is hard to beat.
An absolutely great pick. Well, okay, so say I'm still wanting to stay in the Rolex family, but kind of really dive into that sports watch
Right, so
realm.
not a sports watch, it would be that, but sports watch under 10 grand, a Sea-Dweller.
Love it.
So it's interesting, the Sea-Dweller is a more capable version of the sub.
Of course.
But you can't get a Submariner like, this is probably the cheapest Submariner.
Unfortunately, it doesn't fall in this category anymore.
Right, 14060, 16610, it's typically the cheapest, but now they're closer to 11, 12 grand. Yet, you can get a Sea-Dweller from the same 5-digit generation, which again, you've got a more capable watch, higher depth rating, helium escape valve. You still get the date display, no Cyclops if that's your thing, and this also falls just right under 10. I think in the same way that the two-tone Datejust is probably the most quintessential, like, classic watch from Rolex's catalog, a black dial dive watch is probably the sub is their most iconic from the sports watch family.
But you still get that same impact.
Yeah. And realistically, I have probably the most common Submariner reference. I own it. A bunch of other people own it. It's not really all that exciting. If you're with a bunch of other people who own Rolex dive watches and they all have subs,
you kind of become the conversation piece.
Yeah, you've got the cooler one. It's a bit thicker. It's got the valve. It doesn't have a Cyclops. It's really the watch the Submariner should be, but Rolex isn't going to mess with the recipe of the subs. So
no, they're not.
Yeah, so what you get here, you get a dive watch from literally one of the premier companies that pioneered the genre of dive watches, you get its, more capable sibling even in the form of the Sea-Dweller. And honestly, I think the Sea-Dweller collection is just underrated. On paper and at retail, it's more expensive than the Submariner. It's more capable than the Submariner. And I think there's just so much general hype around the Sub, and it's kind of the de facto choice, a bit thinner, a bit more wearable, that the Sea-Dweller kind of gets forgotten. But the fact that you can still get one of these for under 10 grand seems like it's not going to last forever. And if you've only got 10 grand to spend and want a Rolex dive watch,
very viable investment.
That's the one, yeah.
I agree. Well, speaking of iconic, we are going to step outside of the Rolex world, and we're going to kind of bring in another very recognizable piece, the ever-loved Moonwatch.
If you've got 10 grand to spend as your budget, you don't need to spend all 10 of it to get yourself a undisputed icon from one of the premier manufacturers that will last a lifetime. You won't have any problems getting it serviced or anything. But if you've got 10 grand to spend, let's lean in and go up the line. So what we have here is the sapphire sandwich version of the current production Moonwatch. So you can get a Moonwatch for about 4 or 5 grand if you want to go the previous generation. And if you're strapped for cash, that's probably a great option to go with. But if you want to go a little bit higher, these are about 6.5, 7 grand. And what you get is the new Meta certified coaxial movement. So it's anti-magnetic. You get, in my opinion, a more refined bracelet, a bit more refinements as far as the case, lugs, proportions and all of that, much better clasp. And if you want to spend a little bit more and get the sapphire sandwich model, it's still coming in under about 7 grand pre-owned. And if you're looking for an Omega, this is where I would start if you're looking for a sports watch. And again, I think the nice part here is that there's so many options on the table that you can find one that checks your boxes. This has a superior movement, but if you want like the most classic one that can, is most like the ones used in space, you can also find that too for under 10 grand. So although we're talking about this one right here, I think Moonwatch as a whole probably qualifies for this category.
Honestly, no complaints about it whatsoever. I think the price point is wonderful. Definitely don't have to spend your entire budget if 10 is all we're working with. I mean, the other two, you kind of have to lean in with the entire amount. This one, not so much.
Yeah, you'll still have a few grand to spend on straps. Everyone thinks the Speedmaster works great on a multitude of straps.
It does.
Get a ton of straps, get yourself a beater watch. And this is also one of the watches that its design has been so consistent that it's never going to look dated.
True.
Yeah, the current one looks almost the same as the ones that they were rolling out at the end of the 60s.
Especially a novice like me, it is kind of hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking to get the bona fide sports watch, want a chronograph, especially if you like the Space Legacy, this is kind of like the underbidder selection here as far as price point, and you get a lot of watch for your money.
Absolutely. So not sure if everybody's aware, but Bob's Watches recently partnered with Klarna, which means there's now financing available at our checkout. So it is up for watches that are up to $10,000.
Yeah, so you can finance up to $10,000. So taxes included, so you kind of have to, maybe choose a watch up to 9. But what Klarna does allow for is split payments. So if let's say you had 4 grand saved up for your watch, that technically opens the door to 14 grand. So you can put the 4 grand down, finance whatever the remainder is, whether that's 1 grand or 9 grand, to get your dream watch, and then you have your payment structure set up then. So what's a nice way about that is if the watch you're looking at is just above budget, but just the way prices work, it's probably going to be more expensive to buy that same watch if you hold off another year.
Yeah.
Lets you get it in early, lock the rate. And for a watch like this, you could finance literally the whole thing. But for some of the other ones like the Sea-Dweller, where it's like $999 now, and it might be 10 and change by next year, certainly.
We're getting there.
Yeah, lock it in before it just goes up and ends up costing more for the same watch. The Speedmaster is a more complicated watch than the other ones we've looked at, but 10 grand can get you a lot of complication from certain other manufacturers. You're not going to be getting a Sky-Dweller, but if for Breitling, this is kind of one of those sleeper picks. It's not just a chronograph, it's a split seconds chronograph. So
you can kind of see it.
You can see 1 second's hand circling here, but the other one's up here, and you can see right here, there's 2 different seconds hands. Now this is significantly more complicated watch than your classic chronograph. Breitling is like the grandfather of modern chronograph wristwatches. And so from a legacy perspective, you know, if you're going to get a complicated chronograph, Breitling's a great marquee to go from. Like 8-9 grand for this pre-owned, which seems like a steal considering that you'll pay just about that much or more to get a steel time only or time and date dive watch from other marquees. So, I mean, if you're looking for a complicated movement from a premier manufacturer, this is a great option, and obviously lovely in-house movement from Breitling. You know, I feel like if you are into complications, you kind of want to see the works of it.
Do.
So, you know, this is, in my opinion, if you're going to go for a chronograph, get the sapphire case back just because it's a great one to look at, especially if it's manually wound like this. There's no rotor obscuring it. And what you'd pay for a split-second chronograph from other manufacturers is exponentially more. The fact that you can get this under 5-figure price point is kind of shocking, and it's also a great case size. This is not the 45, 47 millimeter Breitling. This is easily wearable. I mean, like, just look
for
at
you
it.
and for me. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it here next to a 40 mil Sea-Dweller. This is not a huge watch. So, you know, if you're worried about Breitling being like too overly aggressive in design or size, here you go. This is not you know, the 46 millimeter Super
It's relatively
Avenger.
subtle design as a whole too. It's really not
classy.
too invasive.
It's from the Premier line, so it's a bit more restrained. It's not the burly militaristic sports watch. It's you know, it's heavily functional, but it's you know, it's more refined. You could see this with business casual and looking super sharp.
So true. So, you know, you kind of mentioned the classic Rolex watches. We're going to kind of bring in our final pick of, you know, our watches under 10K. This one, for me, is kind of a classic. We kind of went with the white dial, and I'm curious to sort of hear your explanation behind, you know, bringing this to the group today.
Yeah, so Rolex sports watches, they're just so hot. You can't get them at retail. Every single one's trading for significantly more on the open market.
These days,
And with a budget of 10 grand, unless you have a wonderful in with your AD, you're not getting a Rolex sports watch. These ones like the Sea-Dweller are kind of the exception. With that in mind, you can still get a Rolex sports watch for under 10 grand, and there are these sleeper pockets that are probably kind of temporary. They're realistically they're going to go up. The Submariner, the Daytona, the GMT Master, these are all over 5 figures at this point. But the fan favorite, which used to be just kind of overlooked entirely, but has now really been picking up heat in the last couple years, and probably will continue to do so, is the Explorer 2.
Yes.
What we have here is the 16570. So this is the old 40 mil gen, not the 42. So 2 generations ago, discontinued in 2011. But this is the fan favorite for a lot of people, and you can still get these for you know, between like about 8 to 10 still, and it's so unique. Rolex has a ton of black dials. They don't have that many white dials. You get the really practical functionality of the 24-hour hand and GMT you can use as a great travel watch. And I don't foresee this being under 10 grand as we you know, enter 2022 here.
No. It's a great watch. I've always loved this one. I like the cleanness of sort of the white dial. Even though I'm not the biggest stainless steel fan, it's just a beautiful watch, and again, the functionality of it. Good travel, good sport watch.
Yeah, and 40 mil in size.
Love
versatile.
the
You could wear it, I could wear it. It's practical, and if you're into Rolex tool watches for the history, the heritage, and just the purpose-built nature, a watch built for cave explorers, and then later, you know, people studying volcanoes and Arctic explorers and all of that, that's about as niche as you can get. And I mean, the polar dial is kind of the cult favorite. It trades hands for values more than the black by and large.
Yes, it does.
And you can still get it for under 10. This is discontinued, so there's a finite examples of this 5-digit reference around. You're not going to be waiting to get one lucky from your AD, so prices are what they are now. They're probably only going to go up because the number in circulation will become less. And again, like we were talking about, lock it in now while you can still get it under 10, because this might be a very different conversation in a year or two. But like we were mentioning before, split pay does let you flex a bit. So now that we offer financing through Klarna, 10 grand is what it allows financing up to, but if you wanted to put a bit of money down,
a little bit,
you can. Now a lot of the other a sub is on the table, a GMT, and if we wanted to flex a little bit, I've got one other pick that's, again...
You've got one, I've got one, I want to see yours.
Kind of off the beaten path. I wanted to go for a Rolex, not one of the usual suspects. We were talking about kind of overlooked pockets. I think the green crystal Milgauss watches, these are still in production. You can get this or the Z Blue, but it's such a unique watch, and I don't think it's going to be part of Rolex's catalog forever.
Yeah.
Now this will be more than 10 grand, probably about closer to 12 on this one. Again, put down a couple grand, finance the rest. Only Rolex with the green sapphire crystal, only time they've ever done a colored sapphire crystal. But the Milgauss was designed to be an anti-magnetic watch for scientists and laboratory technicians. Now with modern movement technologies, so many watches are becoming anti-magnetic that I think the Milgauss is due for a large overhaul, a reimagination, or just being dropped entirely.
Many of us believe this too.
Yeah, we've been saying it for years.
Been waiting for a while.
And again, people overlook it because it's, you know, a three-handed watch, simple. You might go for one of the more glamorous options like a Sea-Dweller for less money. But, you know, this is going to be one of those watches that when it's finally discontinued, it's quirky, it's unusual, got the orange lightning bolt seconds hand. When it's no longer available, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those watches that people go, well, that was cool, quirky, and not what they're doing today.
It'll start to pick up even more speed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's already now north of 10, and that did not used to be the case a few years ago. So again, if you were going to use a financing option, maybe get yourself a watch that might cost more if you want to purchase it several years down the line.
It's a smart investment opportunity, especially now that Klarna is available, and it's just a standout watch to me. Like, I'm a big fan of the lightning bolt, and personally, I do like the white dial a little bit more, but that's me.
I like the white dial. I love the green sapphire crystal. It's just so...
You've been a fan for a while.
Yeah, green's my favorite color, so yeah. Well, what did you pick? What's your flex and flex the budget piece of it?
You're gonna love this. I went with the Omega side.
Oh, gorgeous.
Blue side of the moon.
Yeah.
Remind me again the actual dial name.
So this is the Omega Speedmaster blue side of the moon with an adventuring dial.
Adventuring, yes.
I love this watch so much, and again,
well, I do too.
I don't think I could personally pull it off, but if you look on paper for what you get for the money, this is really stunning. It's a blue ceramic case.
Yes.
Blue ceramic bezel inlaid with Sedna red gold. Now the complications, it's a Speedmaster, so it's a chronograph, 12-hour chronograph. Both the time and minutes are stacked on this register here.
Yes.
This one is actually a date, so that little red crescent is a date. You can see the 31 track there, and the running seconds hands placed in the middle. Dial, blue adventuring glass, as is the Moonphase disc here with the moon rendered in Sedna gold.
Yes.
Flip it over, you've got a META-certified self-winding Omega movement, caliber 9904, so it's anti-magnetic.
As we noted, this is not under 10K, where these are kind of just outside of that 10K range.
Yeah, it's outside. You'd have to, you know, flex your budget a bit. But when you compare what you get between these two, it's a drastically different watch.
Yes.
You get a ton more functionality, and on paper for a ceramic case, adventuring dial, Moonphase, use of Sedna gold, self-winding META-certified movement, you get a lot of watch for your money, a lot of high-tech watch for your money. And if you're looking for a Speedmaster and don't want the classic Moonwatch, this is an absolutely beautiful addition. And also kind of a one you don't see all that often, the blue side of the moon.
I haven't seen it much.
Once
definitely
in a blue moon,
catches
I
my
think.
eye.
Yeah.
Exactly. Seems like you're hyping up my pick, and I feel really good about this. I'm curious, you know, what watch do you guys prefer? Definitely let us know in the comments. We've got a pretty good variety.
Yeah, a bit of something for everyone. We've got complicated chronographs, simple time only.
Yeah.
Got stuff Rolex, Omega, Breitling. So again, this is the best watches up to 10K. There's amazing watches way below that, but again, if you're giving me a blank check and 10 grand to spend,
we're gonna spend it.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend it.
I'm right there with you.
Spend it and a bit more and finance the rest via Klarna.
I was gonna say, now the option's available, which makes it even better. Well, that's all we've got today. We will definitely be back with some more topical videos that you don't want to miss, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. But until then, we'll see you guys next time.